Story 1. I'm really glad that the record for the longest Senate speech is no longer held by Strom Thurmond's attempt to filibuster the Civil Rights Act. May this be the last time his name is ever mentioned again. Story 2. That was impressive, not just the stamina, but the fact that he managed to stay coherent and passionate for that long. It's one thing to filibuster, but another to make compelling arguments the whole time. Whether you agree with him or not, that kind of endurance and dedication to a cause is rare in politics today. Story 3. Everybody should go out and do something for a full day straight without any breaks or sitting down while being active the entire day. It may be easy for someone in their 20s or younger, but anyone over 30 might find it challenging. Cory Booker is 55, and it was impressive. Story 4. I believe the intention was to provide people with hope. There was no vote he could prevent. It was meant to make a statement. I think he communicated his message effectively. However, everyone here is diminishing that hope. Story 5. Democrats struggle with marketing and understanding how to capture the national dialogue. Republicans, especially Donald Trump, are experts at that. Democrats need to improve in this area. The world has changed, and the way to market to people has also changed. Story 6. Other elected Democratic officials take note. It's better than just sitting there engaging in insider trading while doing nothing to oppose Trump's agenda. Symbolic gestures matter too. Story 7. I don't think it accomplished much objectively. However, Democrats need to get in front of news cameras and start acting like the opposition. If it leads to more opposition, then it was a good outcome. Story 8. A man wears sneakers around the Capitol because he has flat feet, and hard floors cause him pain. He is commendable for standing for that long. Story 9. I have mixed feelings about it. On one hand, it is an impressive piece of political theater, and I believe people really engaged and understood the message. On the other hand, Senate Democrats allowed John Thune to advance numerous items by unanimous consent just moments after Cory Booker finished speaking. The individuals who truly need to stand up and fight gained nothing from this experience. Story 10. Take necessary actions to remove Strom Thurmond's racist legacy from as many permanent records as possible. Story 11. The real comedians are the ones complaining about how Congress was unable to accomplish anything because Booker took the floor for a day. It did not seem to bother them that Congress was not doing anything before Booker started speaking. Story 12. With minorities in both houses of Congress, this is about the only thing that the Democratic Party can do. So I really hope this finally quiets the ongoing question of why the Democratic Party isn't taking action. Probably won't, but at least it provides something to reference when that is mentioned. Story 13. Why do we keep getting posts like this? What do you think about this obvious thing that the majority of Reddit agrees on? What do you think about Trump? What do you think about Nazis? What do you think about Luigi? It's the laziest form of karma farming, and it's happening so much this week. Story 14. At least it seems like a politician with passion and respect for his constituents, unlike some others. Story 15. A strange stunt, but one that certainly drew attention. I could never speak for 24 straight hours. Story 16. Even if he didn't accomplish anything, he, as a man of color, took the record from a racist. There is so much power in that alone, and it has completely reinvigorated my hope. Story 17. People are missing the point, I think. He didn't do it just to break a political record. Did any of you actually tune in to what he was discussing? He made national news by talking about real, specific people who had already had their lives massively disrupted or who have been hurt by the current administration's policies and lack of respect for the document they claim to hold so dear. This is what people have asked Democrats to do. Make strong statements, use every tool they can to slow down, halt, or stop the ongoing issues, and try to educate and anger more people who may not know what has really been going on and who has been getting hurt. I'm not a big fan of Cory Booker, but this was a remarkable move that was much more than political posturing or an attempt to break a record. The man was speaking truth to everyone, and it made such an impact that traditional media could not ignore it. Story 18. It is great to see at least one mainstream Democrat trying to take a lead. They are making an effort to take a stand, even if it feels largely performative. However, they need to remove Schumer from leadership for capitulating on the shutdown. Until that happens, I do not trust them to be anything other than performative. Story 19. I believe we need more energy from the Democrats. They should get defiant and vocal. The supporters also need to criticize them more for what they are not doing, rather than focusing on purity testing their efforts. Story 20. Good for him, but it could have been done at a more significant time, perhaps to block harmful bills. Story 21. He was not filibustering anything. It was a pointless act of protest with no actual goal. The Democratic Party is leaderless right now, and he is just trying to make a name for himself. I think he may be positioning himself for a presidential run in 2028. Story 22. It is a significant achievement to overcome the previous record. Additionally, it is commendable that he is taking action when it appears the rest of the Democratic leadership and members are not. Even a symbolic action is still an action. Story 23. Nice sentiment, but to what end? Where was this when things were actually at stake? Big words and big talk, all for a symbolic gesture of resistance. It is unfortunate they do not put this effort into anything meaningful. The Democratic Party will congratulate themselves, content with creating a distraction, satisfied they did their job, while the rest of the nation suffers. New leaders and new parties are needed. Both the Republican and Democratic parties need to be set aside. Their failures will harm us all if we do not strive for change. Story 24. I appreciate the effort in trying to stand up for something. I wish that there was something else the Democratic Party could do. Story 25. It's not enough, but it's something, and I think many of us have been waiting for something. I find it encouraging, along with the Wisconsin Supreme Court election. I also believe Cory Booker could be a good Democratic nominee. So far, the main criticisms of him are his support for Israel, which is common among any candidate the Democratic Party backs, similar to Kamala Harris, and his strong pro-business stance. I do not view him as someone trying to profit from being in government, as he does not own stocks. His pro-business approach may appeal to swing voters, and on several issues he is quite progressive. I don't require a perfect candidate. I need a better one capable of generating enthusiasm and winning. Many of us admire Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, myself included, but she will not be our next president. Story 26. Impressive stamina, but does speaking for 24 hours actually change minds? Or is it just political theater at this point? Story 27. What is the state of the news? Everything about the record, but nothing about the reasons why. How empty our news cycle has become. Story 28. Cory Booker is a problematic Zionist who spoke for a few hours but did not stop the tax break for the top 1% or prevent any proceedings from occurring. He did not filibuster any important measures or sessions. He did not achieve anything that leads to actual change. It was merely hyperbole. Cory is not the right individual and did nothing beyond promoting his own brand. Story 29. It was good to see someone from the Democratic Party at least try to take action. Ultimately, I believe we all know it did not accomplish anything and will be forgotten within a week. Story 30. I don't really understand the point. It seems like a waste of time. I heard the last person who held the record was prejudiced, so I believe it's karmic justice for his record to be broken by a person of color. Story 31. It is not about the record or the achievement. It is about expressing thoughts that need to be articulated and doing so coherently. Story 32. Reality is not impactful. Nobody's opinion on anything he said will change. People who support him and are politically inclined may view it as heroic and possibly overstate its significance. The majority of people are not paying attention. Story 33. As a non-American, I always appreciate when Reddit fills the entire front page with political content so the rest of the world can feel normal about themselves. Story 34. Sorry, I just don't understand the point. Did he stop a vote? As a non-American, the whole thing just seems strange. Trump is still being Trump. Story 35. I don't love the filibuster, and long-term, I wish it didn't exist. In the short term, this is the type of strategy one wish the Democrats would adopt more frequently. They need to start playing the same tactics the Republicans used to keep up. Honestly, I am glad they are doing anything at this point. Story 36. I don't understand. I am more concerned with what our politicians do and how they vote than with how long they talk. Story 37. Petty and pointless. Just another example of Democrats being sore losers instead of doing their jobs. You know, that whole serving the will of the people thing. Story 38. Performative actions that did nothing but energize Democrats to ask for more money from people who cannot afford basic necessities. Story 39. I'm glad he did something. It's not about being effective. It's about being visible and creating momentum. It's about showing up, shrugging to a camera and saying, "There's nothing we can do because we're not in power," was not the move. Story 40. Performative actions mean nothing. He remains an empty suit. He's willing to discuss issues, but the Democratic Party has offered nothing substantial. They really don't need to. Trump is likely to make enough mistakes to drive voters to the opposing party in the next election, and the cycle continues. If the Democrats presented any proposals, they would then be required to deliver on them. Story 41. Absolutely meaningless nonsense designed to improve his chances of becoming the party leader. It accomplished nothing and was entirely pointless. It wasn't a lengthy speech, as most of the senators missed almost everything he said. It was a temper tantrum. The goal was to convince people he is a leader. Story 42. It accomplished nothing, and after next week, it will not be discussed again. It garnered some attention. Story 43. It shows how completely flawed the American political system is. However, given its structure, it was clever of him to act that way. Overall, the situation feels like a joke. Story 44. We do not need speeches or delays. We need calls to action, and we need to go where Republicans refuse to engage with their constituents and provide them with the facts. Story 45. My one question is, what did this accomplish? Until they actually back up their words with actions, it's just a lot of noise that nobody has the time or attention span to listen to. They need to be more than just defensive or reactionary or make flimsy showings of political theater that lead to nowhere. They need to stop giving Republicans the initiative and go on the attack for once. Hold some of these politicians accountable with more than just sternly worded letters and a quick slap on the wrist. I'm tired of them requesting people to resign. I'm tired of them expecting shame because Republicans have figured out that as long as you're shameless, as long as you don't admit to any wrongdoing, and as long as you don't resign, then you're essentially in the clear no matter what you've done. Being mad at the other side is not enough of a message like it is for Republicans. With how Democrats have fumbled so hard, especially with all the issues during Biden's term, it's really hard to rally with them. Not only that, Democratic Congress members have proven that they talk a big game, but if you start asking them to ban Congress members from owning stocks, they immediately deflate. We know whose team they're playing for, and until they prove otherwise, personally, I can't confidently trust them to lead this country without slipping it back into another Trump era somehow. Story 46. Good on Corey. It is largely symbolic, but it is something. It is a call to Democratic representatives to start the good fight and fight hard. That is what we elected them for. Booker may also be vying for a leadership role. It is about time someone stood up. He wants that role the way the person we support should. Story 47. Contrary to many posts here, it was not a filibuster, but one of the greatest speeches ever given in the Senate. A filibuster is used to block a vote. Story 48. I do not like Cory Booker. I believe he is a pharmaceutical industry representative and an avowed enemy of popular causes such as a higher minimum wage, public health care, and paid parental leave. While I appreciate his efforts, I would have preferred a more suitable standard bearer for this cause. Additionally, I would have preferred an actual filibuster rather than just a lengthy speech. Story 49. It may or may not be too late for it to matter, but there needs to be some populism on the left, some noise, and some obstruction against the illegal and authoritarian agenda being implemented by the Republican administration. I haven't heard much of what he said, but I'm glad he did it and hope it's just the beginning. Story 50. I disliked Booker before, but he talked for 25 hours straight and not about Warhammer, so he clearly knows what he's doing. Story 51. Remember to sort by controversial to understand what people in the real world think, so you don't end up with a repeat of the 2024 election. Story 52. Did it achieve anything other than a new record? No, it was just a waste of time and an opportunity for a Republican to do the same. If anyone views this differently, please feel free to clarify. Story 53. Just another ineffective display from the Democrats that ultimately means nothing. Yet those opposing Trump seem to think it's a victory. Story 54. Mostly performative and ineffective. There was an impressive display of stamina, but ultimately for what purpose? Where was the enthusiasm during the election? Story 55. Better than sitting and holding up an auctioneer bidding sign every time you disagree with something. Story 56. I watched the last hour and a half, and it was very inspiring. You can tell he did a lot of preparation for this, with a whole team of people supporting him and planning how to make it successful. I'm not Christian, but I thought it was good to include perspectives from both sides, which he achieved through the letters and comments. I also really appreciated that he brought up John Lewis and the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. He spoke so well and so passionately that he held the floor the entire time. I was completely engaged throughout. It is time for some good trouble. Story 57. Like all politics these days, it is performative. Look at me. It was an impressive feat of stamina. I will give him that. His diaper must have been soaked, so I guess that is something he has in common with Donald Trump. You do not go 25 hours without peeing. If you do, something is wrong. What did it accomplish? Democrats cheered it. Republicans booed it. It was in the news cycle for about 26 hours until they saw something else that was shiny and started chasing after it. Story 58. I started receiving text message spam from him the next day. I appreciate the performance. The perception that the bottom 90% of us are politically relevant is extremely low. However, it was a fundraising stunt. Story 59. A pointless publicity stunt. I can criticize Trump for 24 hours straight with the same results. Is Trump backing down? Are the tariffs gone? Is immigration enforcement being scaled back? Is Elmo still running Dogecoin? What actual results does this have? None. This is just because he wants to be president. Don't forget that the pharmaceutical companies in New Jersey are the ones that fund him. He is not for the people. Just another performative individual. Story 60. If you are one of Booker's constituents, message him and inform him that you support his actions. Other Americans. Message your senators and representatives and express your support for what Booker did. Let them know you would support them if they took similar actions. Story 61. I have looked at multiple posts mentioning it and haven't found a single comment giving straight answers. To me, it becomes a "so what" type of response. From what I have gathered, he set a new record that was previously held by a racist individual. Okay, cool. But what was he filibustering to begin with? The racist individual was using the filibuster to stop civil rights. Yes, that individual was fighting for the wrong cause. But what was Booker filibustering here? A vote? It seems like grandstanding or breaking a record because that's all that is left for him to spend his time doing after his party spent decades losing credibility. I say all of this as a staunch critic of Donald Trump and a general opponent of the Republican Party for the last decade. Story 62. Performative nonsense from individuals who benefit greatly from the status quo. Where was this energy when an actual vote was taking place? Story 63. At this point, the Democrats haven't earned enough benefit of the doubt for me to assume it was anything other than empty political theater. I hope I'm wrong. Story 64. Democrats are in a difficult position. There are some who still support bans on guns, despite that being one of the main issues that cost them votes. It's time to focus on meaningful actions. Story 65. He is a hypocrite. He campaigned with other Democrats for the removal of the filibuster prior to the 2024 election. Now it seems to be the best thing since sliced bread. He did not do this for America or any real lofty ideals. He did not do it for himself. Story 66. What will it accomplish? It is more reactive than proactive. Being proactive is something the Democrats, including their senior leader, cannot seem to practice. Story 67. We need all Democrats to have this kind of energy. They need to block anything that Republicans want and cause civil disobedience. Story 68. I am a 75-year-old white grandmother and former Republican who is thanking Cory Booker from the bottom of my heart and soul. It's about time someone had the courage to stand up to Donald Trump and not back down. For almost 4 months now, Trump has bullied, threatened, cried, and lied against anyone who disagrees with him. He has shown total disrespect to a foreign leader, except when it comes to Vladimir Putin. I kept wishing Volodymyr Zelensky would get up and stand up to Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and several others. He has never shown respect for our military unless it is for a photo opportunity. As far as I'm concerned, what they are doing to anyone who opposes them is outright blackmail. His entire cabinet has pretty much followed suit. I can only imagine what our founding fathers would say about this cowardly president and this farce of an administration. Thank God the people of Wisconsin appear to have very open minds and eyes. I'm praying more and more supporters of Donald Trump will start to see the light. The felon should be in jail just like any other person who has been convicted of a crime. No one, not even the President of the United States, is above the law. He and his team don't seem to even remotely understand that concept. That's not rain on Lady Liberty, folks. It's the tears of one who sees her promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness being destroyed, and no one has the courage to stop the madness. Story 69. It makes no difference and only serves to raise more Democratic fundraising and gain attention for a presidential bid. He accomplished nothing, and they returned to confirming Trump's selections. I dislike him and every other corporate politician who prioritizes performative nonsense over effective progressive policy stances, as they consistently do even when in power. Story 70. Impressive stamina, but it accomplished nothing except breaking an old record. The Democrats are enjoying it, though. Keep on celebrating and laughing all the way. Story 71. It is performative, but real change comes with policy and being bold for real. I appreciate it, but it does not provide any benefit to me. It does not improve my life. I focus on significant issues that impact our lives. Story 72. I hope it inspires more Democrats to engage in disruptive actions like this. However, I am concerned that people are only noticing and discussing the fact that he stood and spoke for over 25 hours, rather than focusing on what he was fighting for. Story 73. I would like to see it happen again, but with bills and appointments. This is not business as usual, and they need to stop letting Republicans steamroll them. Mitch McConnell was obstructionist every time Democrats had the majority. Why can't we seem to do the same? Story 74. Some would say it is a bit long-winded, while others might suggest that with some editing, he could have communicated his point in half the time. Many on the right still do not understand what he was discussing, as they were still in a group meeting from over a week ago. Now they would like him to begin again. Story 75. It's cool, I guess. It seems a bit outdated, and the reasons behind his actions and their purpose weren't clear, even for someone who pays attention to politics. Story 76. I'm tired of the nonsense surrounding the threat of a filibuster. I want to see someone proudly speak for hours without a bathroom break or sitting down, discussing important policy issues. What I don't want to see is someone wasting everyone's time by reading Green Eggs and Ham. Story 77. I wonder if he timed it to happen when the special elections were taking place. The reason is to boost morale and motivation. Story 78. My back hurts after standing for 30 minutes. Regardless of your political affiliation, this is a remarkable achievement of endurance. Story 79. One aspect, apart from the historic nature and other positive points mentioned by other contributors, is that after 24 hours of standing, one becomes quite loopy. Democrats are often perceived as slow, elderly, cautious, and overly refined. Risking one's physical health at the expense of appearing dazed and abstaining from water for days to empty one's bladder. These physical feats challenge these outdated notions and hopefully invigorate the party. This is also something no Republican can replicate at the moment, due to both physical and strategic reasons, shattering their illusion of total control. Story 80. I think it's a good start, and I'm glad that he surpassed that outdated racist record. I genuinely hope that his spirit is extremely infuriated. Story 81. They should have someone who runs a video game lore channel do this. They could do it effortlessly. Story 82. It likely will not have any meaningful effect within the halls of Congress, but there is precious little they can do until 2026 anyway, if we are lucky. However, it may have a meaningful effect outside of Congress by demonstrating that at least some of these Democrats have the will to fight against what is happening. Story 83. It's nice to see some fight. This is largely symbolic and a bit disruptive, which is a good thing. The hope here is that it serves as a rallying cry, showing that there is some fight in the Democrats. It can rally the base and provide us with some light in this dark time. Story 84. Accomplished nothing and probably made the Democrats even less favorable among the people. I appreciate the stamina, though. Story 85. He stood up and fought during a time when it was needed. He maintained energy and fervor for defending democracy, spread positivity to fellow senators and Americans, and approached it like an athlete. Every time I tuned in, the message was clear, relevant, and persistent. Additionally, he removed several individuals from holding filibuster records. It was a win for everyone. I could have done with less of Chuck, but that's that. Story 86. It seems somewhat unwise, to be honest. I admire his perseverance, but it has resulted in no meaningful change. If you want my support and respect, you need to genuinely address a problem rather than just promote yourself and seek attention. Story 87. It was largely ineffective political theater, but that's exactly what the Democrats need to be doing. Everyone knows they don't have the power to completely stop Trump's agenda, but they do have the ability to make it as slow and frustrating as possible. People want to see the Democrats do anything to slow this down. I would have liked to see them take action against some actual legislation or appointments, but I give them credit for at least doing something we've been asking for. Story 88. I believe it demonstrates impressive resolve and commitment to a cause. It's like winning an Ironman. You have to respect his hard work and skill. Politically, I support him as well, so I am thrilled to see that kind of performance from one of our senators. It gives me hope that we can start winning back many of those seats in Congress. I hope he becomes a role model for other Democrats. I am also very impressed by the story of a black senator taking the record from a civil rights opponent from the McCarthy era. A Democrat has successfully taken on the top 5 from a group of filibustering Republicans with a rallying speech. The entire situation is impressive and positive. Way to go, Cory Booker. Story 89. I appreciated it as an appeal to Republicans in the Senate who know better, Democrats who should not be afraid to start or continue making noise, and to common sense and humanity in general. I wish that I did not have to scroll halfway down news websites to see articles about it. Story 90. While it is unfortunate that nothing was debated on the floor, I commend one of my 2 senators for their actions. It is impressive that they could reclaim the trophy from Strom Thurmond. More importantly, it revealed the true nature of Fox News. They openly joked about running Strom Thurmond's entire filibuster over segregation. Their behavior is troubling. They fail to recognize why it is problematic because they have adopted values that are detrimental to life itself. They do not understand why we do not simply praise them for being perceived winners. They represent the culmination of a decaying oligarchy that has operated in the shadows for decades, dating back to the 1970s, when the wealthy sought to regain control of society. Story 91. It's an impressive feat, and it is better than what most representatives are doing. However, it is completely immaterial unless it motivates or shames enough representatives into actually checking the administration. I'm glad he did something, and I hope it matters. Story 92. I never liked him. I feel he is a disingenuous grandstander. While I agree with his ideals, I just get bad vibes from him and don't trust a word he says. Story 93. I mean, good for him, but it just feels more like performative. I'm running for president vibes than anything else. I say this as a liberal. Story 94. I am amazed and more hopeful than I have been in a long time. That may be naive of me, but I do not care. We all need something to be hopeful about right now. Story 95. Great inversion of the historically unattractive predecessor. Additionally, the Democrats are gaining some attention, which is significant. I believe this is a positive development. Story 96. A tremendous endurance job. I'm glad he beat that old Rackets record. Utterly meaningless, though, since they immediately approved a nominee with a voice vote after he finished. If they really wanted to disrupt the process, it was a perfect opportunity to force a vote and slow down all the issues that Booker mentioned were so bad that he stood up and talked for 24 hours. Words are just words. They complain about how bad the current administration is, but offer little to no resistance to Republican policies and assist in passing the most harmful measures to ensure they cannot be blocked. So their words ring hollow to me. Story 97. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear someone criticizing the administration from a place of love. It is hard to remember that using a time machine to kill baby Hitler is still wrong. Story 98. That sounds amazing, but I wish I could find a place to watch the full 24-hour speech. I think YouTube no longer allows videos of such long durations, which is why most of Cory Booker's speech videos are around 12 hours long. What was he talking about for so long? Did he cover all the topics, or did he spend several hours on a few major ones? And why do such a long 24-hour speech? Did other senators really refuse to go home in hopes that he would stop so they could do something undesirable? He had to keep talking to prevent them from using that time for other activities. Story 99. I'm surprised he didn't wear a stadium pal. He probably could have gone another 10 hours if he hadn't eaten less and dehydrated himself the day before. Story 100. That man just changed the course of history, and as an American citizen, I will forever be grateful to him, even if I do not agree with him on all of his policies. Story 101. I hope it serves as the starting point for the Democratic Party to finally stand up and exercise its remaining power to resist, delay, and block the Trump agenda. Story 102. I am impressed with the physicality of the act and God's ability to remain on message throughout. If it gives people hope, that is great. We surely need it. However, this also seems opportunistic, as there is a clear void of leadership in the Democratic Party, and he is making a calculated play for it. His history of accepting pharmaceutical funding does not sit well with me, and I do not believe he supports universal health care or other progressive legislation. So yes, it is impressive, hopeful, and self-serving. Story 103. While Booker's effort was impressive, I do not understand how this helps stop the Trump campaign with Elon Musk as the conductor. It seems like the Democrats are just rolling over and accepting it. Is this something to cheer about? Was it just a performance? Is this the best the Democrats can do? I mean, yay. Story 104. I believe it is important and makes sense in a world where laws are respected by those in power. It was indeed brave and courageous. However, it matters as much as excellent driving when the vehicle is floating in floodwaters. Story 105. I liked it. Sure, it was for show, but the whole Rosa Parks sitting in the front of the bus was carefully planned and practiced. Events are needed to trigger action. Just as a crystal needs a core to form around, so does activism. He seemed open and honest and was trying something, which is more than what the vast majority of us have done. Story 106. The Democrats and their supporters have been doing a lot of questionable things lately, but this is something I actually applaud. He did so peacefully, non-violently, and in a thought-provoking manner. What impact it will have remains to be seen, but it is much better than behaving inappropriately towards someone's vehicle because of a disagreement. Story 107, 25 hours in, and he can still control his bowels, unlike the current president during 18 holes of golf. Can we regain intestinal fortitude in our leaders? Story 108. Why is he the only one with the courage to do this? I hope there will be a long line of people speaking out against the corruption of the current administration. Story 109. Good. If more people were as dedicated to their purpose, we would be in a better place. Newt was known for his dedication to marathons. I may not have agreed with what he said, but I respect his commitment. Story 110. I am very impressed with Booker. I do not understand why he performed so poorly in the primary. I believed he was the best candidate. Story 111. I'm glad the Senate reverted to the rule of making people filibuster in person with limits. There was a time when it was just stated and not enforced. Now I want to see these Republican leaders try it once the Democrats have the Senate again. Story 112. Anti-MAGA independent here. If this is the first step in starting a meaningful resistance, then it is a positive one. My concern, based on my observations of the Democratic Party in the past, is that it may be perceived as an accomplishment. It could be used for fundraising, allowing them to protect their own interests rather than leading to any significant change in their approach for the coming years. I hope I am wrong, though. Story 113. Out of curiosity, I know it was televised and streamed, but were there any Republicans in the room? Do they have to be there? Or was he speaking to a room full of people who already think like he does? I understand the larger reason and motivation behind this event. I am just curious about who was present to hear it. I know some of the streams had over 200,000 viewers. Story 114. I briefly caught Schumer announcing that he had broken the record as if he had just won a 50-50 draw at a high school football game. That was disappointing and typically clueless. In my opinion, it took away from Booker's remarkable effort. Story 115. I appreciated it and would like to see more of it. I've heard some people dismiss it as merely performative, but it's more than that. This sets the tone that Democrats can and will slow down processes when needed. Booker acknowledged that he and other Democrats haven't done enough to earn their voters' trust. This was a smart move, even if it doesn't have obvious direct results. I don't think it's a coincidence that he did this on the same day as the elections in Wisconsin and Florida. There are also demonstrations planned for this Saturday. Many people who wouldn't consider themselves politically active are concerned about the future and need a place to focus their energy. When politicians like Cory Booker step up and show defiance, it gives more people the motivation they need to get out and demonstrate. Story 116. I still think the same thing as the other 20 times this question has been asked on this subreddit. It is pointless. Story 117. I hope his speech will encourage people to reflect on the current situation in America, and that soon it will be the people who bear the financial burden as prices begin to rise. Story 118. I don't think anyone actually cares. It's all performative and no politician cares about anything other than money. Story 119. I think it's a joke. Next time the Democrats want to block something and don't have another 25-hour filibuster ready, I hope they are satisfied with the good press they received for this pointless theatrics. Story 120. I appreciate him. I hope this motivates other politicians to protect our country and our people from fascism. Story 121. I didn't watch it. I believe actions like that really don't matter anymore. What he did was equivalent to providing thoughts and prayers for 25 hours, just preaching to the choir for those who chose to listen. I predict his symbolic act of breaking a record will not change anything. If I'm wrong and what he did does change things, I would be thrilled. Story 122. He received media attention, and progressives appear to have appreciated it. If it leads to an improved perception of the Democratic Party, that would be excellent. Story 123. It seems performative and a way for him to jumpstart his presidential campaign. I believe all this political activity is just performative and nothing will actually get done. Story 124. For a long time, I have felt that Cory is focused more on self-advancement than on advancing policies or representing constituent interests. I am not surprised by this type of behavior. It is symbolic, attracts attention, and is ultimately frivolous. However, I am glad he did something regardless of his motivations. It is better than complete inaction and complicity from his colleagues and Chuck Schumer. Story 125. He is doing everything in his power within a heavily infiltrated and corrupt administration to prevent the far right from causing further damage to our country. Story 126. Within 12 hours of the end, I received a message from Cory asking for money. It feels like typical Democratic National Committee behavior, presenting an illusion of conflict while remaining inactive on meaningful issues. They have much to account for regarding this situation and appear to continue enabling it. They have benefited and keep asking us for more money to mismanage. They don't care. It is a money-making scheme similar to the Republican Party. Story 127. How about legislating for 24 hours straight? It is performative behavior that accomplished nothing except boosting his poll numbers and getting him on CNN. Story 128. What was he trying to delay or stop, which is the whole point of a filibuster? To me, it seemed performative and attention-getting for whatever reason, and it came off as manic and strange. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.